All right, shalom, shalom. I'm going to start up this video by giving all praise, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Rakakodash, double honors to the elder apostles and the bishops, a great millstone that rule well, that teach well, while I learn the truth, 100% according to the Bible, and also shalom to the elect, and shalom to the Aqua, which are the sisters that are sincere in your children, shalom. And in today's video, as you brothers and sisters can see from the title, I'm going to read it. It said expert, right? Which I guess is this woman right here, this Edomite woman. Or she could be a Jake. I mean, I don't know, But it said expert on civil wars around the world. Says the Salakia. I didn't try to do that. Salakia. It said around the world says the fight to save democracy must come from the bottom up, right? So they're basically saying that they're basically trying to imply that, the people are going to have to be the ones to try to basically step up and try to save the Constitution, which is basically foolish talk, because we all know that ultimately Esau Edom is going to bring in martial law and all types of different things to try to further his new world agenda. And the Lord, Yahweh Shem Yahweh Shai, is going to allow Esau to come in with these things. So ultimately, that's what Esau wants these people to do. Ultimately, that's what the Lord wants to happen, because it's all biblical prophecy. But a civil war will happen. I mean, they basically been preparing people for it for the beginning. For the last few years, they've been prompting people up for this thing. Look at the movie Obama put out, Lead the World Behind in 2023, I believe. That movie was talking about civil unrest and chaos happening in the streets of America. You got a movie literally called Civil War that just came out, last year in 2024? So, I mean, these things are going to happen. That's what Esau Edom does. He does predictive programming, which, basically putting out movies and things like that of things and stuff that they wish to fulfill, or plans they want to happen, or the plans, they want to make happen, and ultimately it's Yahweh Shem Yahweh Shai controlling it, because we know civil wars will take place in America. That goes into what it talks about in Isaiah 19:2, and I'm going to get that precept real quick. Bear with me. Right? So, yeah, man, civil war actually will hit the streets of America, Babylon the Great, very soon. You know what I mean? Like, we don't know what day and hour specifically, of course, but we know that these things will eventually take place, because, it's all part of biblical prophecy. And it's going to happen. And these elites, these higher ups and the Edomites, they know that a civil war is going to happen as well in America. And ultimately, they're through the spirit and power, because we know that the spiritual demon Satan on the left-hand side is controlling these elites, who ultimately Satan is being controlled by Yahweh Shem Yahweh Shai. So at the end of the day, these elites on the left-hand side, they know that they want these things to fulfill, but they don't know that Yahweh Shem Yahweh Shai, the Lord, the Heavenly Father and His Son, is the one up controlling the spiritual demon Satan to make them do these things, which ultimately to fulfill Yahweh Shem Yahweh Shai's will, to enact judgment on these people here in America. That's what it's going to be in the times of Jacob's trouble, right? This is Isaiah chapter 19, verse 2 in the KJV. And it said, and I being Yahweh Shem Yahweh Shai, the Heavenly Father and His only begotten Son, it said, will set the Egyptians against the Egyptians, and they shall fight every one against his brother, and everyone against his neighbor, city against city, and kingdom against kingdom. That's pretty much self-explanatory right there. That these are the times that which we're about to come into in America very soon, especially when, famines happen and blackouts and things of that nature that they also have planned in the near future. Well, Yahweh Shem Yahweh Shai has planned, but ultimately he's using Esau Edom, which is the left-hand side, the sword of Yahweh Shem Yahweh Shai, to bring forth judgment on you so-called Negroes, Latinos, Native Americans, so civil unrest will happen in America. Is inevitable. It will happen, especially when these new tariffs I just seen that Trump just put out, so there's new tariffs that hit. And, ultimately, like I said, they said Trump didn't put tariffs on majority of all the nations around the earth that are not basically aligning themselves with the United States and their philosophies. So, that's going to affect the economy even worse. So coming into April, there's no telling what we're bound to see. And then I also just did a video not too long ago where I watched this video of this guy, and he basically was saying that, Donald Trump said that he's going to bring in the Insurrection Act on April the 20th, and April the 20th, that's only, today is April the 1st as I'm recording this video, it's almost 12 o'clock in the morning. So, that's only 20 days away, or basically you could say 19 days away before that happens. So, if he really does go through with this act to bring in martial law in the streets and things of that nature, what do you think that's going to cause, man? That's going to cause civil unrest. That's going to cause a civil uproar amongst these people. And it's funny that all of these people are talking about these things, because ultimately this is what's about to happen, man. very soon. Even the people in politics know these things are going to come. So, it's going to happen. So I'm going to get into this video. We're going to listen to a little stuff of what this lady has to say basically on the topic. So I'm going to start this video by saying fair use under the 1976 Copyright Act. I'm not getting paid for this video. It's only for educational purposes only. This is public information. So with that being said, fair use. Right?
Civil War used to be the stuff of history class, or talk of Civil War used to be the stuff of history class or maybe speculative fiction. But today, scholars of history and political science now openly discuss the possibility of a new American Civil War. My next guest, Professor Barbara F. Walter, is an expert on civil wars around the world. She has spent years advising the...
Well, and we basically just heard her say what she said. She just basically said that, civil wars happened in the past, right? Basically in America, this place was founded on, oppressing and violence and things of that nature. In the same way that this place was established, just the same way the Lord is going to allow it to fall, man, and I'm going to go to that precept, that came to mind, Ecclesiastes 1 and verse 9, basically these people know that history always repeats itself, so all the things that we've seen happen in the past, is definitely going to make its way back around, because that's how the Lord does things. He tells you about, Jeremiah 28:8 to be exact, even though I know this precept has nothing to do with the video, but just further proving to you how the Lord does everything. That is basically things that happened in the past are the same things that basically happen now in this time of society we're living in. So I'm basically just using that precept for an analogy, basically, so right. And I'm gonna look at that word analogy, just to make sure I'm using the correct word. You want to always back check yourself when you do videos. Oh yeah. The water of the Yah by Shem Yahushai. So basically an analogy, man, proving to you, how the Lord said in the book of Jeremiah 28:8, the prophets that have been before me and thee of old prophesied both against many countries. So, that's letting you know that the same thing that was happening back then are the same things that's happening now, ultimately leading up to this precept that I'm going to get, Ecclesiastes 1:9. The thing that have been, it is that which shall be, and that which is done is that which shall be done. And there's no new thing under the sun. Furthermore, proving to you that everything has even us coming back here, man. We know that reincarnation is a real thing. Every soul is recycled every third or fourth generation, and come back into their lot or whatever it was they was doing in their past life to, replay it out again in another lifetime. So we know these things are real, man. So ultimately, guess what? If you had a civil war that occurred in the 1800s in America, which is, I believe, over almost 200 years ago, right? So if that occurred, then ultimately we know that it's going to come back around again. So, history is just fulfilling itself, and this is ultimately biblical prophecy, because the Lord is the one controlling these events and stirring it up to happen, So, it tells you in the book of Proverbs 21:1, how the king's heart, meaning his mind, is in the hands of the Lord, and he turneth it whithersoever he will. So the Lord is the one having these people talk about these specific topics of discussion and things of that nature, civil unrest, civil discord, and things of that nature, because that's ultimately what's going to happen, of course, right? We know, because in the time of Jacob's trouble, that's going to be the ultimate civil discord right there. When these people out here in the streets don't have food, water, fighting against one another and things of that nature, so all of these things are going to happen, man, This Bible. So, it's going to fulfill one way or another, and it's going to happen soon as well. We already see everything leading up to it.
War used to be the stuff of history class or maybe speculative fiction, but today, scholars of history and political science now openly discuss the possibility of a new American Civil War. My next guest, Professor Barbara F. Walter, is an expert on civil wars around the world. She has spent years advising the CIA on the subject. In her work examining the seeds of civil war in distant lands, she started noticing some of those warning signs close to home right here in America, long before most others did. She's been sounding the alarm about the threat since at least 2008, and her message today...
Well, that's good and all that she's doing that, but the true people that have been sounding the alarm are the men of the Lord, the prophets, starting with the elder apostle Tahar, Apostle Gabar, and the men on down, and also the men that came before them, Abba Bivens and all of the other men of the Lord. They've been doing this since the 60s, talking about these things happening. So, In reality, it was the men of the Lord that basically been prophesying these things, you know. And I'm gonna go to Jeremiah 28:8 also because you know I read that scripture partially, so I might as well get it, you know. And this is what the men of the Lord have been prophesying to happen, you know, civil unrest, uh, gender wars, class wars, civil wars, you know, all of these different types of things. The men of the Lord been talking about these things for Salakia for decades, man, you know, upon decades, you know. So this is Jeremiah 28:8 in the KJV. It said, the prophets that have been before me and before thee of old prophesied both against many countries, against great kingdoms of war and of evil and of pestilence. And that's what the men of the Lord been talking about way before this woman came on the scene. You know what I mean? Not discrediting her or anything, but still the men of the Lord been the ones putting this truth out there, putting this information out there, warning the people on the highways and hedges of these events to come, martial law and all of these things, you know? So we're going to get back to the video. I just had to get that precept. Right.
Is that we should not ignore those warning signs, but also that we can take steps to lessen the threat. Now, before she joins us, let's take a minute to dig into her findings. Walter's research looked at...
All right, you know, I got to go to this precept. That just came to mind. Because she basically saying, you know, we need to do things so we can basically attack this threat so it won't happen. Sorry to burst your bubble, man, but these things will happen, man. Thus saith the Lord, thus saith the Bible. So I'm going to go to Isaiah chapter 46. You know, Isaiah 46:9, right? Remember the former things of old, for I am Yahweh, and there is none else. I am the Heavenly Father, and there is none like me. Verse 10, declaring the end from the beginning and from ancient times, the things are not yet done, right? The Lord showed the men of old, the prophets, you know, Esdras and a lot of different other our forefathers, you know, Isaiah, Jeremiah, all types of different prophets of old, and telling them of the things that which are to come in this generation that we're living in now. So our forefathers, they seen these things thousands of years ago, man. That's basically playing itself out now in our lifetime. So guess what? Everything that the Lord wants to happen will happen, man. Ain't no stopping none of these things. Ain't no stopping Jacob's trouble. Ain't no stopping America from, you know, being ultimately destroyed and civil unrest and things breaking loose here. You know, the collapse of this place. All of them things are going to happen, man. You know, though people don't want to accept it, it's going to happen, man. That's just one thing you got to accept, because the Lord's counsel will stand regardless of anything, of how people feel, of how they say or how they talk or what they feel like it's going to happen. It's not what you think, is what the Lord says. And he said these things are going to take place. So I'm going to read this verse 10 again. It said, declaring the end from the beginning and from ancient times, the things that are not yet done, right? So these events haven't taken place yet, but we know through biblical prophecy that they will happen though, right? So it says, saying, my counsel shall stand and I will do all my pleasure. You know, letting you know that we're not in control of anything. Is all the Lord's will and is all his doing, man. So everything that's happening, ultimately the Lord wants it to happen. You know, so we must understand that, you know. But I'm going to get back into this video, you know.
At which countries were most likely to experience political instability and political violence in the coming years. Her work identified two key factors as highly predictive, and America checks both boxes. The first is anocracy, a term for a weakened democracy that contains elements of autocracy. The second is whether citizens have organized politically around identity as opposed to ideology. That means they make political choices based on factors like race, ethnicity, or religion. Walter's research found...
You see? And that's what she basically just said. And that's true. Like, majority of these people here in America, they make decisions based off how they feel or how they feel like it's going to affect their specific group or people, you know, or how she said colors, you know, and things of that nature, which is a social construct that Esau Edom created to also cause division as well. But I mean, we know ultimately these things will happen, man. You know, they will happen, man. That's all that's pretty much to be said about that, you know. But yeah, all of this stuff is set up ultimately, of course. But we know, like I said again, it's all the counsel of the Lord, man. It's what the Lord wants, you know. So no matter what it is Esau Edom's doing, I mean, what the Lord wants, that's what's going to happen, man. You know, the Lord wants civil unrest to be out here in these streets, because that's what's going to happen in the times of Jacob's trouble, you know. So, you know, it's going to take place, man.
That both of these predictive indicators have been rapidly emerging in the United States in recent years. She writes that Donald Trump embraced identity politics explicitly and with gusto. To quote her, she says,
and we're gonna read that what she basically said, but we understand that She's not lying about that, though. Donald Trump is definitely embracing that segregation, dividing type of mentality. As you can see, he already passed certain laws to where certain Jakes, you so-called Negroes, can't be in the military, and things of that nature. They're passing a lot of laws, basically proving to you, which in these laws being passed is ultimately going to cause civil unrest. But hey, like I said, Proverbs 21:1, the king's heart, meaning his mind, is in the hands of the Lord, and the Lord turneth it whithersoever he will, roughly paraphrasing. So, I mean, like I said, all these things that Donald Trump is doing, it's not like the Lord isn't controlling it, because this is what the Lord wants to happen, man. So we're going to read that. It said, no Republican president in the past 50 years has ever pursued such as openly, you see that word, platform or championed, you see that, evangelical Americans at the expense of everyone else, and that's what's happening, man, because Esau Edom ultimately knows that he's losing power, man, around the world. Look at America. They don't have the power structure and all of the different things in which they used to have among the nations. They don't have that power, that authority to basically control people and tell them to do what it is they want them to do. All of that stuff is basically, falling apart, man. They don't have that power, and they know they're losing that power. So ultimately, all of this goes back into Revelation 12:12. Let me go to that. All of these things that you see ultimately goes into hand in hand with Revelation 12. Salakia, well, Revelation 6:4. Revelation 6:4 and Revelation 12. So let me get Revelation 6:4 first. Furthermore, proving to you that this man will take peace off the earth. The Lord has given him that power, man. And that's why you're hearing all these talks of civil wars, social unrest, and all of these different things, because this is ultimately what Esau Edom wants to happen. But then again, like I said, that's what Esau wants to allow to happen on the left-hand side through the spiritual demon Satan, which is being controlled by Yahweh B'Shem Yahushua. All right, so this is Revelation 6:4 KJV. And there went out another horse that was red, representing Esau Edom, the so-called white man. And power was given to him that sat thereon to take peace from the earth, and that they should kill one another. And there was given unto him a great sword. That's going into that civil war, man, when all hell breaks loose in here in America and around the world, but mainly here in America, Babylon the Great. So all of these things are pushing towards that, man, for this peace to be taken off the earth, which we see happening slowly but surely. Like the Lord said, all these are the beginning of sorrows. It's like birth pains. You seeing ultimately everything happening leading up to this big event that's about to transpire, but it's starting off small, right? That's why he's passing certain laws, certain people getting offended, things of that nature. That's why he's putting things out there like, oh, so-called BLACK people can't be in the military, right? Ultimately, to all of the so-called Negroes, Latinos, Native Americans, or anyone else that have served in the military, they're probably going to get offended by that. And like I said, this is just going to keep constantly building up tension to ultimately everything happens, man. And ultimately, this is what Esau Edom want to have, right? Because he know, like I said again, he's losing all his power. He doesn't have the ability to do things like he used to, man. He's losing his power structure. All of these other nations are threatening him. And Esau Edom knows he's backed into a corner. So what does a person do when they are backed into a corner and they know that they don't have a lot of time, right? This is what they do. They basically do things erratic. They act like a wild dog. I'm pretty sure a lot of you people have seen, like a dog that's injured or any animal that's injured. If it's injured, which Esau Edom is injured right now, his economy, his system that he created is injured. So ultimately he wants to, retain that power that he once had. And by him being injured, seeing as though all these other nations are not following suit with the things in which they used to be able to follow suit in, right? Iran used to fear the United States. Now Iran is basically bucking against the U.S. And the same with these other nations they used to fear. Now they're starting to, not fear this place anymore. So that's slowly but surely taking away this man's power structure. So ultimately he's going to come down with that great wrath, man. And I'm going to read that, Revelation 12:12. Therefore rejoice, ye heavens, and ye that dwell in them, woe to the inhabitants of the earth and of the sea, for the devil, Esau Edom, the so-called white man, is come down unto you having great wrath, because he knoweth that he have but a short time. Yeah, man. He know that he got a short time because he can see everyone around the world is basically not abiding by his philosophies anymore, his rules, his legislations, his unrighteous decrees that he have tried to set amongst the people of the world. They're not being manipulated by those lies anymore, right? So this ultimately him know his power is being taken away from him, and he's ultimately going to come down with that great wrath, man, which is going to lead to this civil unrest, these civil wars, Jacob's trouble, martial law, and all of these other different things that the woman is basically talking about in this video, about there being civil unrest, social discord, and all of those different things, man. But I mean, like I said again, all this goes back into Yahweh Hashem Yahushua.
Republican president in the past 50 years has ever pursued such an openly racist platform or championed white evangelical seriously until January 6, 2021. That is when Americans started paying closer attention. On that day, Trump told his supporters to fight like hell, and they would follow through with armed, sharpened flagpoles and stun guns. Most were white, most were men, Walters writes. January 6th was the grim outcome of one of the most divisive elections in U.S. history.
And guess what? If we see that we don't really know if he made that happen. I mean, they say he did, but I mean, let's say he can get an advantage of us, for we are not ignorant of his devices, 2 Corinthians 2:11. So, I mean, we don't know who could have started this, man. A lot of those people out there, we know Esau Edom, he loves a lot of controversy. So he does a lot of controversy and a lot of false flags and events. So, I mean, it could have been the FBI or the government out there and those things that incited that riot. I mean, we don't know, because we understand how this devil gets down. That everything he does, he does for a specific agenda. But ultimately, that could also been a foreshadowing of the time that we're in now, that when he's in office, you're going to have that same type of behavior occurring in the earth with these people, man. And ultimately, like I said, it's all going to happen, man. And let me get another precept furthermore proving that, right? I'm going to go to Matthew 24:7, and I'm going to read it basically KJV. And it says, for nation shall rise against nation. That's going into those race wars, and class wars, and civil wars, gender wars, and all the type of other civil unrest and social unrest that is about to come to this place, America, right? So the Lord said that these things will be going on in the last days, the ending of an age, the ending of Esau Edom, the so-called white man's empire, his rulership here on the earth. That all of these specific tokens which the Lord gave us, which are events that are occurring in the world, ultimately leading up to the return of the Lord, Yahweh HaMashiach, who the world ignorantly calls Jesus Christ, right? So it said, for nation shall rise against nation, right? Going into those race wars and stuff of that nature, right? And kingdom against kingdom, you also see that taking place. You see Donald Trump threatening Iran to bomb them and things of that nature if they don't basically obey and submit themselves to or subject themselves, basically falling in line with the unrighteous decrees of Esau Edom. Then they're going to bomb it, and that's what Esau is known for doing. He's known for, deleting anyone that doesn't basically stand it. I mean, basically, if you're not with him, you're against him in his mind, and even if you're with them, he's still against you, because that's what this devil does. He just wants to remain control. I mean, to retain that power, that control, because that ultimately goes into this, what would you say, this God complex that Esau Edom has, man, that he wants to be Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushua. So he ultimately wants to be in control of everybody. That's ultimately why he wants to put this MOTB inside of people, man, because he want to keep track of everything it is you're doing. He wants to be fully in control of everything. And that's why he's mad at all of these other nations, because they're not falling in line, or they're not being able to control them how they used to. So that's ultimately why Trump is about to come down with great wrath, man. And we know this is going to be the president that's ultimately going to bring all of these things about, man. Just look at what he's doing now. And it's only going to get worse as time goes by. And they said there should be famines. You got famines happening everywhere, scarcities of food and pestilences everywhere you look. There's another different outbreak of some unknown EZs or things of that nature that's popping off. So, all of these things are happening, man. And they said ain't earthquakes in diverse places. I mean, you got earthquakes happening everywhere. You got an earthquake just happened that just killed thousands of people. So ultimately all of these things that the Lord have left us, these signs, we seeing them now in the earth. So if everything else is happening, right, meaning the earthquakes, the pestilences, the famines, you don't think that the nation against nation is going to happen, which is the civil wars? That will happen in America, man. I'm telling you, you're going to have people out here raising up swords against one another, man. And let me go to that precept, second address, second address, Salakia, bear with me, second address, 15. Let me see if this is the precept I wanted. All right, this second edge is 15 to 49. And it said, I will send plagues upon thee, widowhood, right? Widowhood goes into a lot of women basically not having men, man, due to the chaos that's going to be taking place here in America, man, on these streets, due to, like I said, Jacob's trouble, which is going to be civil unrest, civil wars, and things of that nature taking place, right? It says poverty, a lot of people losing their jobs right now, in America, a lot of jobs being shut down and things of that nature. Ultimately, all of this is to lead to, like I said, that social unrest that's coming, Jacob's trouble. And it says famine, sword. Ultimately, what are these people going to be doing to one another? Sword is the modern day gun. They're going to be deleting each other, all for, the lack of bread and things of that nature that's soon to come. And it said, in pestilence, to waste thy houses with destruction and death, man. So ultimately, this is Yahweh Shem Yahushua bringing these evils upon these people, man. Ultimately, this is judgment, man, for America, Babylon the Great. For all of these prideful people out here, man, that, didn't want to take heed to the words of the Lord, that didn't want to repent, you so-called Negroes, Latinos, Native Americans, you 2/3, y'all going to get caught up in this stuff, man. And the men of the Lord are as well, but we know that the Lord's will, we be at that hopeful number, is going to protect us, man. But civil war is coming to America, man. I mean, that's pretty much basically the whole point of the video, that there will be civil unrest in America very soon. Especially when everything else started hitting, especially when this full effect of those tariffs that Donald Trump put on these people really start to affect America. And the more you're going to see prices increase, food prices going to skyrocket, gas going to go up. All of this stuff is going to happen soon, to the point where people are just going to be so tired that they're just going to react. And that's ultimately what the government wants to happen. Because like I said, order out of chaos. They create the problems, right? Allowing food and things of that nature to go up ultimately. They're allowing these things to happen because they know it's going to affect you people negatively. And that's what they want to do. They want to ultimately get a reaction out of the people so that they can bring in martial law and everything that they already have planned. Like I said, Satan, Satan has the same tricks, man. You just got to be aware of him and how he comes. But, this man has the same tricks, man. He been doing the same thing since the beginning, man. The same little schemes and tricks. Since America been founded as a nation, he does the same things, man. He doesn't, how they say you can't teach an old dog new tricks? That's true, man, because guess what? This man Esau does the same thing, and people are continuing to fall for it, But we're going to get back into this video,
And yet, somehow it feels as though an even bigger powder keg has been building ever since. Crucially, Walter urges us to rethink our assumptions about civil war, not just its possibility, but also what such a war might look like. This is disturbing stuff. She warns us that civil wars are not typically started by the groups most people expect, the poorest or the most marginalized. Instead, they are often ignited by groups that were once politically dominant but are now in decline. Today, the U.S. is undergoing major demographic shifts, transitioning from a majority white Christian nation to a majority non-white population that's expected to happen by 2045. This shift means...
So you just basically heard what she said. Yeah, I'm pretty sure you brothers just heard that. She said basically there's not a lot of so-called Caucasian people in this society. Like they never was the majority. We know they weren't. Esau Edom just spread that lie to try to instill fear in the so-called Negro, Latino, Native American. We know that there's most so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native American people here than so-called white people. That's facts. We know that. And ultimately these people are becoming scared because they're surrounded by the tribes, man. You so-called Negroes, Latinos, Native Americans make up majority of this country, as well as with a few other heathen nations. But still, those heathen nations and these so-called Edomites still don't make up the majority of the so-called Black, Latino, and Native American people that are in this country, man. So basically these people are basically showing how scared they are. They're like, man, if something basically does happen, man, we probably lose because it's more of them than us. And you see, Jake is not thinking about this. Jake in the world, they're just worrying about trying to get to work and get money and things of that nature or whatever they might be out there doing, right? But this is how these Edomites are thinking. They're thinking like, oh, man, if hell breaks loose, we don't have a lot of us, So this is just goes to show you how evil these people are, man. That's what they think about, bloodshed, war, things of that nature all the time. That's all their mind is focused on, man. At all times is, doing things to people. How can, they cause some type of disorder and chaos? Because that's what those people are. They're devils, man. That's all they love is violence, man. Evils, right? So this is 2 Ezra chapter 15, verse 16. And it said, for there shall be sedition among men. That word sedition goes into basically people rebelling against the government. People, basically not listening and not taking heed of the warnings of the police, the military, and things of that nature. And that's going to come very soon. And this civil unrest that's coming, right? And it said, and invading one another, they shall not regard their kings nor princes, and the course of their actions shall stand in their power, right? Verse 17, a man shall desire to go into a city and shall not be able. And the reason you won't be able to go to a city, because guess what? Like I said, you're going to have all type of different chaos ensuing on the streets of America. So it's going to be hard for you even to get to the next spot, because it's going to be so much bloodshed, so many bullets are being fired off and things of that nature. You're going to have also martial law being in place, military troops walking down the streets. So it's gonna be crazy out here, man. And this is all coming in the times of Jacob's trouble, which we're already in. It just, like I said, haven't just reached its full potential yet. Just like you see these storms and earthquakes happening around the earth, guess what? These are only the beginning, as the Lord has said, St. Matthew 24:8. All these things you see in are the beginning of sorrows, man. But it's gonna get way worse, and trust me, people gonna know when it gets worse, because then you won't be able to go outside. It's gonna be you're gonna know when things are worse. Trust me. It ain't there yet, but it's getting now, right? And this is verse 18. It said, for because of their pride, the city shall be troubled, right? Jacob's trouble, that civil unrest, that race wars, them class wars. The houses shall be destroyed, and men and women shall be afraid. So, if men going to be afraid, the weaker vessel, the women going to be afraid. So these are the times in which we're coming into, man, civil unrest. But also, as you've seen, the Lord said this goes back into the pride. He said that. He said, and because of their pride, the city shall be destroyed, right? So we're going to go to 2nd Esdras 8:50, man. One of my favorite precepts. I bring this out, man. These are the times in which we're living in, man. It said, for many great miseries shall be done to them that in the latter times shall dwell in the world, because they have walked in great pride. And we coming into those times where a lot of miseries, right? You already see in the beginning of the miseries, people not being able to afford food, people not being able to basically, get jobs and things as easier as they used to be able to get them. These certain businesses and things of that nature are not hiring people, because guess what? This country is so far in debt that they can't hire too many people. They only can have a certain amount of people on the budget. Because they can't have too many people, and that's all going into like I said, the economic collapse of this place, man, which is going to lead to civil unrest, man, So we're going to get back into this video, probably watch a few more, about another minute of it, see what she's talking about. Then I probably end it, see what she's talking about.
Those who no longer hold a majority of the vote could lose political power. According to Walter, a new American civil war would likely be a war of insurgency fought by militias using guerrilla tactics, including terrorism. Those groups would avoid engaging directly with the military, instead targeting civilians, black churches, synagogues, federal judges.
You heard what she said? And you got a lot of those out here now. A lot of so-called militias with Edomites, training in the woods. Let me go to that. The brother Yasharala 144. Salaki for saying your name wrong. But he did a video on this earlier. And I believe 2 weeks ago, he did a video on this where these Edomites was basically in the woods preparing for exactly what this woman is talking about. So we see these things going to happen. And Lord's will, I can find that video. I'll show a little bit of it. Lord's will, bear with me. Hopefully I can find it. I pray I do. Because that video was important, man, to let the people know what times it are that we're living in. We're living in these times, man. And it's going to happen. Let me see. I might have to go. Let me see. Bear with me, brothers and sisters. Salakia. Because I just want you to see these things. Furthermore, proving to you that this civil unrest will happen, man. I mean, it's going to happen. Nothing's going to stop it. Let me go to it. Bear with me. I know he did about trying to remember the video that the Ak did. Man. Salakia. Yeah, I'm not going to be able to find the video because the video was done so long ago. I don't even remember which one it was. So Salakia for that. But yeah, it was a video basically I wanted to show, basically how these so-called WHITE people, or they call themselves Caucasians, but we know they're biblically Edomites. Not all Edomites that look like Edomites are Edomites, because you have some people that may look so-called white, but their seed line goes back to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. So it's not a color thing, but majority of the so-called Caucasian people in America make up the biblical Edomites. And, they're basically preparing for this civil unrest. They're all in the woods, basically training, shooting at targets and things of that nature, getting themselves equipped, man, for what they know is to come, And who are their enemies going to be? Their enemies is going to be none other than you so-called Negroes, Latinos, Native Americans. So this has been basically the end of this video. Lord's willing, it was edifying. Until the next time, I'm going to say shalom.